If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedman.
Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is a nationally recognized direct response podcast marketing expert. Seth Greene is the author of 8 best-selling marketing books, including Market Domination for Podcasting. Seth is the co-host of the number 6 rated podcast in 2019, the Sharkpreneur podcast with Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington. He's been interviewed on NBC and CBS News as well as CBS Money Watch. He's also been featured in Inc. and Forbes magazine. Seth is the founder of one of the fastest growing direct response marketing firms in the country, Marketing Domination, that helps make new clients for your business appear like magic. Seth, what an absolute pleasure it is to welcome you to the show, and thank you for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
Well, thank you so much. It is an honor to be here. I am super excited to see what we can dive into and share with your audience.
Excellent. Well, it's begging to ask you about how new clients can appear like magic. I mean, that obviously intrigues the curiosity. So let's start with that.
How we make new clients appear like magic, it looks like a trick, and there are lots of tricks, tips, and hacks to that process. But it basically begins with breaking down like the 5 principles of magical marketing, figuring out who our target audience is, what we can do for them that's different, why they should do business with us, where they hang out, and how we're going to reach them in such a way that they respond to our offer, our product, our service in a way that's never happened before, so that it literally looks like magic when you wake up and look at your computer every day and your inbox is flooded with new prospects, new leads, new people who want to talk to you.
Well, that's quite a lot to take in all at once. So let's take those one by one, and maybe you could give us just a few examples of how we could go about each of one of those 5 steps.
Absolutely. And we could do a multi-day seminar on those, but I will try and pack it into our very short time together. So the most important one is who. Who is your target market? Who are you going after? If you do this right, your entire business can change. I'll give you an easy to understand example that everybody will get. We had a dentist as a client pre-COVID. He said his ideal client was anybody with teeth. And I said, Doc, that's not the way it works. I'm not going to pick up my phone, call everyone I know and ask them if they still have teeth and send them your way. And he laughed. After an extensive deep dive through his records, we were able to determine that the patient that he liked working with the most, that paid the most in cash, that referred the most, it was the easiest to deal with, was a 45 to 55-year-old suburban woman who had gotten divorced in the last 6 months, was starting to date again, was terrified of competing against younger women, wanted to do something to make herself feel more confident, but was afraid of plastic surgery. So
I don't think you could get more niche than that.
That is exactly the point. So when we remade over his entire practice to only serve that elite small group of people and sell them a $25,000 divorce smile makeover, it completely changed his practice. He went from working 6 days a week to 4. His overhead was cut in half. And he literally now makes 400% more money in about half the time that he used to.
That sounds like a recipe for success. I like that one. Let's go to number 2.
Sure. So once we figured out who our prospect is, we have to figure out where they hang out. Because if I was going after 80-year-old arthritic widows, I would not reach them on Snapchat because they haven't even heard of it yet. We have to determine where do they hang out? Where do they spend their time? Is it Facebook? Is it Snapchat? Is it TikTok? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn? Or is it television? Is it radio? Is it direct mail? Is it at the spa? Is it at the salon? Where is the virtual or physical location they congregate the most, where we're going to be able to reach them in the most cost-effective way? because I could take the greatest marketing campaign in the world. But again, if I put it for those 80-year-old arthritic widows and I put it on Snapchat, it's going to be a waste of money. But if I put an ad in Arthritis Today magazine, it might work incredibly well.
Yeah, you always got to know where they are. And as you rightly say, which platform they use, if they even use a platform. Yes. So number three.
So we've got who our target market is. We've got where they are. Now we need to determine what we can do for them that's different. It may be the product or service may be physically different, or we may just package it differently in such a way that makes it stands out. We took a cosmetic dental procedure that every dentist presumably could do and all started screaming that they did as well. What we did was it became about more than the procedure. The patient was picked up in a Rolls-Royce limousine. She and a friend were taken to the practice that now looked like a spa. They sat in massage mani-pedi chairs instead of dental chairs. So they got a mani-pedi while getting their teeth done. They drank champagne. They also, when the procedure was over, they were taken to a professional shopper who picked them out a new outfits for a photo shoot. They went to a hairstylist and got a new hairstyle. They went to a professional photographer and they got a photo shoot in their new clothes, in their new hair with their new teeth for professionally done pictures for their dating sites. It became an experience. The Rolls-Royce limo took them all around the town to all these different places and then took them home. It literally became an experience that we literally had a line out the door of people who wanted to sign up. We even had women say, I'll divorce my husband if you'll give me that treatment. When we figured out who the right people were, where they were hanging out, and what we could package in a way that looked different, it completely transformed his practice.
I want to know where that dentist is.
Because, see, it worked, right?
Oh, that's fabulous. And what's number 4? We're at number 4 now.
Yes, so we got who, we got what, we got where, why should they do business with you as opposed to anyone else who offers something similar to you? The answer to that question, that unique selling proposition or magical marketing proposition, that one sentence answer, each one of these done right could totally transform your business. Do all 5 and the sky is the limit. For example, we have worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of professional practices over the years. And I would say thousands of financial advisors and insurance agents. And the answer they always say is, oh, well, I help retirement income, or I help preserve your peace of mind, or something generic like that. Well, what if instead the answer was, I help affluent suburban families send their children to elite private school for less than the cost of a state school? All of a sudden, people say, well, how do you do that? Where do I go to learn more? I want to go check out howtofindmoneyforcollege.com. That sounds amazing. I didn't know that existed. So if you answer the question right, someone will say, tell me more, or how do I get that service? That's how you know you did it right. If I just I can't walk into a cocktail party now because of COVID, but if I walked into a networking event and said, I sell insurance or I'm a financial advisor, everyone assumes they know what that means and nobody wants to talk to me. However, if I talked about cutting the cost of college in half, any parent with college-age kids is going to want to have a conversation with me, which means you did it right.
Those words, tell me more, or how do you do that? They're like magical words to one's ears. Then you know that somebody's interested if they want to know more about what you're doing or what you're offering. Those are magical words. How about number 5, Seth?
Number 5 is how. How do we build a marketing system, a lead generation system that combines all of those elements? How are we going to reach our ideal client, where they hang out, and communicate to them why they should do business with us and what we do that's different in such a way that they raise their hand, take advantage of the offer, and take those next steps, whatever our sales process is. Do they fill out a form on a website? Do they pick up a phone? Do they punch in a credit card? Do they book a consultation? What do they do next that is going to then allow us to go through our indoctrination and sales process so that they ultimately end up hiring us and are thrilled with the process and have their expectations set correctly from day one? That's who, what, where, when, why, and how.
So let's say that I wanted to do some of this by myself. What could I do by myself before I say, help, Seth, I need you?
Yes, and we have a team of 38. I can't take all the credit for all the work that we do. I would start in order. I would start thinking about who is your ideal client and don't give a broad-based generic answer. The more you can niche down to a much smaller group, it will help you work better. It will help. Just that alone will transform your business, going after the right people. So if you're an author, if you're a speaker, if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, you don't necessarily want to help everybody who has the problem that you solve, because theoretically, not everybody could afford you. Not everybody is the type of person you want to do business with. Not everybody has a sphere of influence where they can refer you to others. We want to narrow it down. Like the dentist example, every woman getting divorced has a friend getting divorced. I don't know why this is. Thankfully, I'm happily married to my only wife. However, what I've noticed is she's had a number of friends get divorced, and they all have other friends getting divorced that commiserate and go through it together. So there's a built-in referral source. How could you narrow down that target market so that it's a group of people in a certain vertical, in a certain industry, in a certain psycho or demographic niche, so that in such a way they could talk about you when you are not in that room, physical or virtual, and thus generate a whole lot more business without any additional work on your part or any social media ad spend?
This is so apt at this current moment for myself, Seth, because I'm currently teaching a program called Author Marketing Mastery. And niche marketing is at the core of everything we do. Is how can you find a niche market for your message, which is incorporated in your book, but
Yes.
It's really the message and the value of the message. And how can you take that and drill deep down into a niche market where they can appreciate what you have and what you could offer them to serve their needs. And there are tons of opportunities out there. I think
You are
you give an
absolutely
excellent
100%
example.
right.
Yeah, with a dentist, that was fabulous. I mean, look how many dentists there are out there, how many accountants or how many legal practices, financial planners, but it's all generic. Why should I go to one versus another?
Exactly. We're working with a gentleman whose firm, he is a lawyer, an accountant, and a financial advisor. So he's got, I think, 3 personalities, but he's got an absolutely incredible practice. And when we were working on his LinkedIn marketing, we were trying to figure out who his ideal client was for each of the 3 firms. And we found out on the law side, on the estate planning law side, his ideal client was another accountant, because they're so busy taking care of their clients and doing taxes, they forget the legal protections they need for themselves. Then on the financial services firm side, we were able to determine they were having great results helping pharmaceutical employees of big pharma companies who had been downsized or laid off due to COVID handle their transition, their employee benefits, and their retirement packages. So by totally remaking those LinkedIn profiles to attract the right people, they're going to be generating leads almost every single day of their exact right target market because it's defined better.
Naturally, there has to be some market research that is done. What do you do in terms of market research? What is the best way that you get the results that you need?
We do a ton of market research. A lot of it will start with, again, figuring out those 5 things. We'll dive through and we'll have our clients tell us stories about their favorite clients and what they loved working with them and how that process went. But more importantly, we will say, tell us about your nightmares. Tell us about the clients who drove you crazy, the people who charged back and asked for a refund and threatened to sue you and made you miserable. Tell us that, because we want to know what you don't want and we want to know what to avoid, because we've all been there. Sometimes someone will say, oh, this client was fine, or this is who I want. But when we do a deep dive on the nightmare, we find out everything they don't like about their business. And then we can reinvent it to make it how they want. For example, we've had a number of real estate agents who say, hey, I hate doing open houses. I hate driving all over town. I hate that people can't make decisions and they got to look at 10, 20, 30, 40 houses before they pick one. And if I add up how much money I make by all the time I spend, I'm not making very much per hour. I could go flip burgers or something. One of the things we did in the real estate space was help those real estate agents transition from emotional real estate, which is the home someone's going to live in, to working with investors buying investment property out of state, which means there's no open house. They're never going to see the property. They buy off an Excel spreadsheet. And as long as the numbers and the cash flow are right, they don't ever come to visit. Instead of buying one house every 7 to 10 years and driving our realtor crazy in this example, they might buy 4, 5, 6 pieces of property a year, all via email. And our real estate agent suddenly has a life. He doesn't have to work nights or weekends anymore. And all of a sudden, he's making a whole lot more money from a smaller number of repeat buyers because they're investors, because we changed who we're selling to and what they want.
What comes to mind as you're saying all this, Seth, is that often we're frightened to ask our clients what it is that they're frustrated with, what challenges they have, and just actually talk to them about what's of concern to them, because that's where the needs and opportunities could arise. Would you agree with that?
I would agree 100%. I would say ask your clients. That's some free market research you could do yourself. You will assume you know. I guarantee you, you don't know everything. I don't. I wish I did. But if you ask your clients, hey, why did you originally hire me? What problem were you hoping I could solve? How are we doing? What did you try before you hired us to solve the same problem? What were your frustrations? What kept you up at night? What drove you crazy? What do you like about what we're doing for you and how we're handling it? Not only will that give you great market research in terms of how to reinvent your business, but it will also give you languaging to use in your marketing and your advertising that addresses the real concerns of your marketplace. Another great way to do that is go find a book on your product or service on Amazon, and don't read the 5-star reviews. Go read the 1-star negative reviews of people who are really upset. And then in your marketing, talk about how your target market will never have to deal with those issues again because you've solved them. And that's a gold mine right there.
I love that tip. That is worth the whole of this interview, Seth. And I would say we're finished now, but we're not, because I know that you've got a lot more wisdom to share. How about mistakes? I know our listeners love learning about mistakes and how to avoid them. What would you share with them?
Oh my goodness. I would say there is a fantastic wealth to be learned in other people's mistakes. That's why I try and read constantly. I'm always reading a biography of an amazing business icon and the adversities they overcame, because I can learn from their mistakes and hopefully not make the same ones. As soon as I make a mistake, I want to figure out what happened and build a system to prevent it from happening again. And I want to keep making new mistakes so I learn each time. I think some of the biggest ones I've made in my own career, I didn't hire soon enough. I didn't build systems for those employees to follow so that I was not involved in the management process at all. Thankfully, we've got those now. And then I think the biggest mistake I've ever made is spending the money before I got it. And my worst example of that was a number of years ago. We have 3 kids. Our 3rd child was now a year old at the time, and we were looking for a new, bigger house. We had outgrown our first house. She was in price range, let's say, we'll call it price range number 1. And I had been working on a marketing contract for a deal to be hired by one of the largest regional personal injury law firms. It took 9 months to get to fruition, but we finally got to the point where he said, okay, I'm in, give me a contract and I'll hire you and we'll start Monday. And it was a multiple 6-figure contract with 7-figure performance incentives. So he was going to become our biggest client overnight and a large percentage of our business. And so based on the fact that I knew there was a multiple 6-figure check, coming, I had told my wife to go buy a bigger house and said, our price range is a couple $100,000 more, because I was going to use a chunk of that cash for a down payment. Well, I didn't get a check on Monday. I didn't get a signed contract on Monday. So I waited a couple of days. I sent an email, then I sent a text, then I made some phone calls, and literally a month went by. And my wife was trying to put offers in on houses, and she was wondering why I was telling her to wait, and she didn't know. And finally, I went to this guy's office, and I told the lady I was here to see him, no, I don't have an appointment, but I brought a book, and I canceled the rest of my day. I'm going to sit here all day until I get 5 minutes, because he's gone radio silent on me for a month. And it shouldn't have taken a month. That's another mistake. She storms off in a huff, comes back and says, he changed his mind. He's not doing it. And I had to go home and tell my wife, honey, you got to go back to our original price range for buying a house, because I know you got attached to these bigger, nicer houses, but we can't afford it right now, because the reason we could was he promised me this check and I didn't get it. And the worst part wasn't just disappointing my wife. I had also already hired staff in anticipation of all the work we were going to have to do for his firm. And I had to find something for them to do. I had to generate the revenue somewhere else to pay them.
It sounds like a nightmare.
It was, but I have never had that problem again because I learned that lesson painfully the hard way.
Isn't that always the case, that we have to learn the hard way? We have to do it, experience it,
So
experience the
frustrating.
pain.
I told my dad used to say, oh, it'll build character, whatever the problem was. And I said, why can't I build character in a condo on Miami Beach? Why does it have to be hard? But if it was easy, it wouldn't be worth doing, right?
And everybody would do it.
Also true. Yes.
Just from a very selfish standpoint, Seth, your book, Market Domination for Podcasting, I have to ask you to share some of the secrets that you learned while you putting this together. You interviewed some of the top people in podcasting. What did you learn?
Oh my God, so much, which is why it's a couple 100-page book. However, I'll give you a couple golden nuggets. I think the biggest one I learned was everyone in the industry that I interviewed was making money podcasting the same way. They were selling advertising on their show. They were promoting their own products and services, or they promoted other offers as an affiliate. And all of that is dependent on having a large enough audience of listeners so that some small number of them will take action, buy the thing, and make you money or a commission or justify advertisers advertising on your show. But what I realized was the majority of our clients were never going to get to that point. They were local business owners, they were authors, they were speakers, they were coaches and consultants who might have a course, they might have a consultancy, they might have an offering that could be sold around the world, but they were never going to become Tony Robbins. Even though they might want to be, they were never going to be a household name. They weren't going to get 1 million downloads. It just wasn't going to happen. So I said, I want to reinvent the model and think about how could I make 6 figures or 7 figures from a podcast with barely any listeners and no ads. I flipped it upside down, and our first client, other than me, because I said, I can't be the case study because I'm a marketer and people will say that's not fair. That's not the way my business really works. After I did it, our first client that we tested my idea on was a golf coach who literally got paid $75 an hour to give golf lessons. Now I'm in Western New York, Buffalo, where it's famous for snowing at least half the year. So golf season is a little bit shorter than most places. He could only work 6 months a year and only got paid $75 an hour. So we launched his new venture with a podcast, and off the very first episode, which had 9 listeners and 4 of them either worked for me or were related to him, literally generated $50,000 because we created the ultimate high ticket last golf lesson ever, $100,000 a year golf coaching program. And we used that podcast to get in the door with his target market for the 6-figure program for golfing. And we sold it to Fortune 500 CEOs who play in celebrity charity golf tournaments. And they would fly him in on their private jets every quarter for their golf lesson for a couple days. He literally stopped attending my mastermind group that's in person because he was sending me pictures of him flying to all the great golf courses like St. Andrews or Pebble Beach all over the world, golfing with these high-profile CEOs who had paid him for 4, 8, 12, 16 days, 4 times a year, paid him more than he had ever made an entire year working full-time.
Whoa. That makes you think, well, how about our authors? What are some of the things that they might be able to offer? They don't have necessarily these high-priced programs or golf lessons that they could offer. What would you suggest to them? What would they look at? How would they put a package together?
So they actually could. A number of our clients end up becoming authors, or if they aren't already, because a book is the ultimate business card and the ultimate lead generation tool. I would say that you absolutely could use your book as front-end lead generation to attract your ideal target market and thus launch a high-ticket offer. We have another client who wrote a book interviewing Inc. 500, which are the fastest growing privately held companies in the US, interviewing 12 Inc. 500 CEOs about how they grew, published the book. Obviously, we wrote and published the book, marketed the book, got 6,000 people to register for the bonuses that came with the book. We marketed that book to the other 482 CEOs of the Inc. 500. Obviously, we got a lot more than just the CEOs to go get that book, but it was a bestseller on Amazon. And of those, we took a number, we used the book as the front end, and then the bonuses to steer people to a webinar where then on that webinar was sold a $100,000 a year executive coaching program. He sold 10 slots, sold all 10, and had $1 million business working a couple days a week, part-time from Zoom, and all off the back of the book. I would say if you're already an author, you've got a head start because you've already written something. Now it's just a question of how do we use it as the front end to attract the type of clients that can pay you what you're worth for something amazing.
That is another dynamite piece of information. Seth, I know that our listeners are probably chomping at the bit to find out how they can learn more about your services, your book. Take it away. Tell us what they need to know.
Sure, absolutely. We have two special offers for your listeners. One is if they go to marketdominationllc.com and they fill out the contact us, the form that's right next to the sizzle reel, they can get on my calendar for a 15-minute marketing challenge consultation. Nothing will be sold. I guarantee you we can solve any marketing challenge in 15 minutes or less. And we normally charge $497 for that, but it's free for your folks. And then the second offer is if they go to yourdream50, yourdream50.com, they can register for a training I recently did live with the Harmon brothers, who are the kings of viral video with over 1 billion video views and $450 million in sales. They're clients of ours, and they asked me to train their audience in how exactly our Dream 50 process works to grow a 6 or 7 figure business off the back of a podcast and a book. And your listeners can go to yourdream50.com and watch that training for free.
That is so generous. Wow. We're going to put that in the show notes so that everybody can take advantage of that, Seth. Thank you so much. And if you were to leave our listeners with a golden nugget, what would that be?
I'm going to give you my favorite quote, which is not from me. I'm not going to quote myself. My favorite quote is from Dr. Corey Melnikoff, a chiropractic entrepreneur and best-selling author of the $4 Sandwich, about his story, how his debit card literally got declined for $4. And then he built a multi-million-dollar chiropractic empire. And my favorite quote from him is, who you are affects how well what you do works. Who you are affects how well what you do works. So if something's not working in your business, work on yourself first before you work on the thing. Because what I have found is every geometric leap our business takes isn't because I learned some whiz-bang new marketing technique or Facebook ad or YouTube video thing. It's because I worked on myself as a person. I worked on myself as a leader, as a husband, as a father. I worked on myself, on my personal development. And then magically, this is no surprise to you, but when you work on yourself, your business will grow to match your new capabilities. I would tell you my best advice would be his, which is go work on yourself and watch your business catch up.
Wow. What a treasure trove of golden nuggets you've shared throughout this interview. Seth, you've been amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you all for taking time out of your precious day to listen to this interview. And I sincerely hope that it sparked some ideas you can use to sell more books. Here's wishing you much book marketing success.
The time is now to take action and finally build your book-selling empire. And the great news is that Susan is here to help you. Visit bookmarketingmentors.com and sign up for a free 15-minute book marketing strategy session with Susan. She'll help you discover your first steps to marketing and selling your book. Only those who take action are rewarded, so visit bookmarketingmentors.com, and we'll see you again next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.